Go ahead, Satya.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to OpenCV Weekly Webinar. I'm Satya Malik, the CEO of OpenCV.org. Our guest this week is an example of someone with experience in a field of taking matters in their own hands and creating new solutions in that field. In this case, it just happens to be American football. Scott Bronkema is a former Division II college football player who will be showing us a very intriguing system which uses AI and computer vision to call plays and monitor the results. But first, as always with me is Phil Nelson, the Director of Content and Creative at OpenCV. Phil produces the show, and if anything goes wrong, it's his fault.
Yes, good morning, everybody. Hello, hooray. Once again, it is I, the co-host with the co-most, the second banana who is second to none, your plus one and only. It's Mr. Nelson if you're nasty, but you can call me Phil. I'm here to remind you of a few things we do every single week here on OpenCV Weekly Webinar, the first of which is a special giveaway to you in the audience. Stay tuned for a trivia question later in the show. The first person to answer it correctly in the Zoom window will win the OpenCV course of their choosing, so stay tuned for that. We're also taking Q&A from you in the audience. Use the little Zoom Q&A button at the bottom of the screen or on YouTube, Twitch, wherever you're watching. Ask your question. We'll do our best to flow it into the conversation, and we'll save time at the end of the show to answer questions we don't get to during the presentation. That's about it for now. Satya?
That's great. Welcome, Scott. Let's start with an introduction. Please introduce yourself, and then we will go over the presentation and the scary demo.
Yeah. Hi, everybody. Scott Bronkema. Like Satya said, played and coached college football, played Division II in Canton, Ohio at a school called Malone University. And if you're unfamiliar with collegiate sports in America, basically there's different tiers of levels. You have Division I, your big schools like Alabama, Georgia. They basically can offer full scholarships for like free education for sports. I played Division II level, so right below that. So they give partial scholarships so they can basically pick up more players and whatnot. And then there's Division III, which I coached at in Ohio, and that's no scholarships. So I've basically been around football my entire life since I was 5. Grew up wanting to be a pro football player, all that good stuff. Fortunately, the good Lord didn't bless me with being as fast as some other guys on the field. So but yeah, so I coached football right out of college. My degrees are in sports management and elementary teaching. I have no formal training when it comes to software engineering or development. I just always liked it and was interested in it, and just kind of as a hobby type thing. But yeah, basically this all kind of started 5 years ago. So I taught for a couple years in elementary and middle school. So year 5 and year 8 for overseas folk. And did that for a few years. And then I was like, I really like IT stuff. I'm going to go do that. So I did one of those boot camp things and was able to get, basic help desk job. And then from there, I found a software engineering job and did that for. So yeah, I taught for a couple of years, year 5 and year 8. And then I did a boot camp and then did some help desk and then software engineering, which is what I wanted to do. And I did that for a couple of years, and then I left to go work at VMware doing some product support. So the whole thing was, all right, I need to build a portfolio and GitHub and, kind of keep my development chops kind of going about me. So I worked in Java. Like I said, I have no formal training or formal education in any of this. So I worked in Java. So I started building a play card application. So in football world, during the practice week, you practice against the opposing team's plays, both offensively and defensively. So you take, a piece of paper and draw it out, and then you'd show a practice squad. So basically 11 guys that you pick to practice against, kind of like a sparring partner or whatever. and they would run that play. So I was like, what if I can speed this up? Because it's a very tedious process. You do it every week. And when you're a low level coach like I was, that's what you did. So so I started writing it in Java, and it was pretty simple. It was almost like a Microsoft Paint with a football field as a background, and you started showing it to other coaches, and they were downloading it, and I was kind of doing some tech support and installing Java for them and showing them how to run it and doing all that stuff like that. At one point, I go, man, it'd be sweet if you can. Early 2020, when I started looking at OpenCV, and I found OpenCV Java, and I used old HAR cascades, and I think the probably OpenCV 2. I don't even remember. It was so long ago. It was a really old version of OpenCV and some old, demos and stuff like that. And unfortunately, I chose to write the program in Java Swing, which was 15 years old at that point. So very antiquated framework I was using. So I figured it out. Like, I kind of did everything. So it would open up a video player, and you would see these little blue boxes just flashing on the screen, tracking players. I was like, this is amazing. And so, of course, programmatically, I'm like, okay, so what's next? And after that, every OpenCV article I found was either in C++ or whatever, and Python. So I was like, okay, I don't know Python. I've heard of Python. Let's learn how to write Python. So, start figuring out Python, just hacking away at it and copying and pasting stuff in the browser, and in PyCharm, just finding syntax errors and all of that, and just basically Googling it until I got something running. So for me to program, I need to have examples of something that I'm trying to do, or figure out what I'm trying to do, and take whatever tutorial I have or Udemy course and do it that way. Like, I find that way helps me the best to be able to program. So anyway, the process, I had a lot of questions to answer that I didn't know that I had. So every single time I had a question, I basically had to go back and rewrite the program, or do something, or tweak this or tweak that. And honestly, it was just a lot of Google. There's a lot of great articles out there, and a lot of great things. And once you figure out the question you're trying to ask, basically, that really helped me, at least in this process. I didn't know what object detection was, but through the process of learning and researching and reading, you see the word object detection. It's like, okay, how do I take that and put it to the terms that I know? And which is a lot like learning a playbook in football, honestly. You're constantly translating what you do know into something you don't know. So
I got a quick question, Scott, about so you said you started working with some coaches and like showing them sort of basically digitizing playbooks, or is that
essentially
what was their football coaches kind of notoriously almost Luddites with tech, and especially at the college level. And so I wonder what their, like, what was the reaction that you got when even just trying to say, okay, let's take these play cards and move them onto the computer, and so you can have them on your phone or your tablet or whatever. What were the reactions from coaches?
So that's actually a really good observation. Yes, most football, I don't want to paint the picture of American football coaches are just big, dumb Neanderthals, because they're not. They're incredibly smart. They're just incredibly smart in one facet of thinking, and that's football.
Yeah.
There's a lot of coaches out there that could talk for hours, and I myself would even just be like, yeah, I have no idea what you're talking about. So but yeah, there are a lot of older coaches out there who didn't grow up in the technology world. Me being a younger guy, I'm 35, and when I started coaching, I mean, the transition into digital world was just happening, especially on the lower levels of football. So yeah, when I started showing coaches, the coaches who obviously showed the most interest were older coaches who are, more technically advanced, or coaches who were younger, like me, who they were kind of like, the designated young guy in the staff. So the head coach would be like, hey, you're young, you handle the video and all the tech stuff, and because you're young, you'll figure it out. So yeah, that's a very real thing, especially in the high school and some smaller college level. But as you go higher into the football ranks, that you tend to find the smarter folk, if that makes sense.
It seems like maybe the more money is involved, the more likely they are to be a little bit more up on the tech because there's a little more skin in the game, as it were.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. When you're getting paid a couple million, but could be fired any given notice, you're always looking for that next edge or that next thing that's going to help. There are quite a few digital playbooks out there at this point. The big video company Huddle has one. There's First Down Playbook that has one. There's a company called Go Route. There's a lot of digital playbooks out there. So the thing I was building was quite antiquated even at the time. There's an old program called Playmaker Pro that basically would run off a USB stick. That was a very lightweight program. That was essentially what I was building. The next steps of trying to automate it and all that stuff and make it playable, or like some animated, I guess would be a better word. That was where I was going next, which is not really out there at this time.
Right. And, we should never discount the intelligence of people who are not necessarily using tech. So in my, when I was a grad student, I used to work in cryo-electron microscopy. There, they had this microscopist. He was legendary. His name was Nigel. And he produced such high quality data, and our job was to automate whatever he was doing. When you look at the sample, it needs to take a very high quality image, and it was such a big challenge to match his quality. We could not actually match his quality while I was there. Later on, maybe now they are doing much better, but that was the inspiration. We take inspiration from people who are not necessarily he was still very technical, but not technical in the software sense. So we were taking inspiration from those people, and the software that they were building at the Scripps Research Institute. Nobody knew this outside the small group. It was called Leginon. Everybody knew that the name of the software was Leginon, but nobody knew the origin. And the origin was that if you look at if you inverted the word, it was called no Nigel. So if you turn it around, it is Leginon. But if you so that's the that's a different kind of intelligence, right? Just because some people are not into tech or software, right? They may not have the skills, but they have different kinds of intelligence and skills, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. So I'm going to kind of go through some of the problems and kind of what I wanted and what I did to fix them. And you'll see this all through a demo. The first thing that I wanted to be able to select the video that I wanted. Most of the OpenCV tutorials you see are just pointing to an image or your webcam or something like that, or you would hard code the video path. So it sounds simple, but that's something I wanted to be able to do because coaches film isn't the most accessible film in the world, as most coaches are like, no, it's mine, I can't show it to you, type thing. They're very secretive that way because you think you get all their secrets from them, which you can. But anyway, so I used tkinter's default packages that just come with your Python. Ask for file name, and you take that file name and you drop it in, and there you have so 4 or 5 lines of code and a couple imports. You can basically pick whatever video you want to run your OpenCV scripts against. I found another tutorial using OpenCV track bars to basically pick the start and the end. So it takes the frame rates of all the the video, and you can drag it and you'll see it. Because the way coaches film is the game, they show it from, if you've seen football, it's from a sideline view. If you see it on TV, it's from a sideline view. But coaches film is from an above angle view, like up on top of the stadium looking down, so you can like see the whole
three-quarter overhead, like in sort of old video game RPGs.
Yeah. And the way a coach like myself would get the film is you would see the sideline of it and then the end zone of it. So the same play from 2 different angles. And I won't go into details, but you can get a lot of information about what a team's trying to do or what a team's going to try to do against you based on those two
How many
those two
videos
looks.
are there usually for these? I mean,
So
the
in a
small
typical
level-
football game, there's anywhere from 170 to 200 plays total.
Okay, so that would be that times two for how many videos?
Essentially, yeah, two different angles. So I coach high school football right now. Generally, you only get one angle. You only get the sideline.
and each play is a few seconds,
Uh, generally 6 to 9 seconds,
6 to 9
or
seconds.
4 to 9, I would say. Some plays are a little bit more quick hitting than others.
Right.
And then on higher level film, you also get a scoreboard shot. And the scoreboard always shows you the score, how many timeouts teams have, down and distance,
Play clock.
just
That sort of stuff.
Yeah, he'll be back. He'll be back.
Yeah.
just a lot of information. So now I've done some end zone stuff. I'm still trying to figure that out, but are you losing me? Are we
Yeah.
still good?
Yeah.
You're back
Okay.
now.
So I only use the sideline. I can use the end zone. I haven't fully figured that out or fleshed that out, but sideline is the big thing I focused on. So if you imagine getting a video clip that long, picking the frames that I want it to start and end at are pretty important.
Yeah.
Next, I track individual players, but not linemen. And there's one reason is it's a contact sport. So when you see a bunch of bodies going against each other in a small space, the bounding boxes generally will get thrown off. And that's one of the reasons why I don't track them. But another reason is they're pretty static. There's always 5 linemen, and then there's usually 3 or 4 defensive linemen. And depending on how many players you track on the defensive side, you can always assume how many defensive linemen there are based on that information.
Right.
So that
do we have an image, because a lot of people, a lot of audience may be outside the United States. Do you have an image where we can see what alignment means? Or even sideline view and the end zone view.
Sure. Let me try to pull something up real quick.
Yeah.
Because in soccer, lineman means something else.
Yeah.
For sure.
It does.
Can you see this at all?
Yeah.
Great. So this is the Detroit Lions versus the New York Jets, a couple pro football teams. Here would be your center. The center touches the football.
Two of the most historically bad football teams, for what it's worth.
That's not true at all. The Lions are top 10 in all-time wins and top 5 in Hall of Famers, meaning well-established players.
All right, you're just, that's fair, but it's been a rough 40 years or so. Let's say that.
And they made the playoffs 3 times last decade, and that's fine. They almost made it this year.
Phil, you're out of your league.
Anywho, this is the center. The center always touches the ball. The team on white is on offense, and the team in green is on defense. So the team on offense is going from right to left, trying to score. But the center touches the ball every single play, and we'll give it to the quarterback. It has. Like I said, I'll get distracted on every single rule and stuff like that. But there's 5 linemen. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Here you can see there's 4 defensive linemen. So the only people I would track out of this, what's known as the tackle box, are the center and the quarterback. So the center kind of controls everything. If you think about this as your point of origin, your 0-0 of the grid or graph. And then I'll track any skill player. So a skill player on offense is anybody who's not a quarterback or an offensive lineman. So skill. Yeah,
wide receiver, tight end, running back.
Tight ends, running backs, fullbacks, exactly. And then defensively, I'll track any linebacker and DB. So anybody who basically doesn't have their hand in the dirt. So him. So at the start of the play, you can kind of tell already to track each one of these guys individually would be almost impossible.
Yeah.
Because the bodies are just way too close in proximity. That I've found. Maybe one of you guys out there are way smarter than me that can figure that out. So
they are hanging and banging in there.
Yeah, exactly. So basically there'd be bounding boxes across him, basically all those guys.
Oh, lost for a second.
If I do any tracking on this play. I don't really have to do much frame selection, as you'll see from my demo later. But yeah, those are the people I track. And basically the reasoning on that is because if you know where the center is, you kind of know where everybody else is, especially offensive line, defensive line wise.
Yeah, and there's a little bit more complication there too for folks that aren't football people, is that the old offensive line usually has pretty much the same setup, but the defensive line could have, 3 guys up front, 4 guys up front. That can change, and
Yep.
And that can even change before the play as well. People can,
right. Yep.
be moving around the line of scrimmage there on defense or offense.
Yeah, and that actually comes to a point of who do I track and why? And if you think about, I did use RoboFlow, which I'll get to in a minute. The classes I decided on, the reason why I didn't call each skill position their position is because how do you tell on film if it's a tight end, running back, or receiver? Because you can literally line those players up wherever. Even the quarterback, you can put all the way to the top of the screen or the bottom of the screen or whatever. Basically, the only rule in football as far as pre-snap, before the ball goes between the center's legs, is there has to be 7 people on the line of scrimmage. And those 7 people can be anybody and they can be anywhere.
And those guys down on the offensive line can't move a muscle.
Well, I don't want to get too specific into rules. It's basically once your feet are set, you can't move them. But you can motion, but only one.
You can yell and jiggle.
Yeah, you can. Yep. You can't do anything to influence the defense to thinking the play's about to start, if that makes sense.
Right.
So
mostly talk shit is what they do.
Yeah, some people are pretty good at that. So basically, the next thing I wanted a bird's eye view. I wanted to take the play from that sideline view you saw to an above play view, like how you would see a play card drawing. Remember the whole reason I did.
Oh God. This is so interesting.
So if you think about that,
we lost you for a little bit there, Scott. Maybe rewind 20 seconds and go from there.
I'm sorry.
It's all good, man. You don't control the internet.
Yeah, AT&T does. It's their fault.
Yep. So I'm always down to talk shit about AT&T. You heard it here first, folks. AT&T sucks.
So the big thing is in football plays, the camera moves. It'll zoom in, it'll zoom out. It's not a stagnant camera view because the football play moves, right? The players are moving from left to right or right to left. So you have that cameraman's job for the coach is to make sure he sees the whole field where all of the players are visible. So if you think about that, you have to actually cut play. You can't actually I haven't figured out a way to take in the whole play yet because of that camera moving.
Unless you had specific info on the camera, you'd have to backtrack the camera motion and go from there, I feel. What do you think, Satya?
Well, I think that the markings on the ground, there's the yard lines, right?
Yep.
Those are very strong cues to actually align the video.
So I actually use the numbers on the field.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so I use the numbers, not the yard line, because the numbers are always visible to a certain degree. And you'll see that in the demo later, but that's a question I had to answer is what can I focus on to get those 4 points on the football field and take them to, I call them destination points and source points, but and then the picture you use to kind of print all these dots to, that's static. So those 4 points aren't changing. So in the homography, I literally, because that camera is zooming in and zooming out, those 4 points on the football field are changing. They might be 465, 158, one frame, but the next frame they're 466 and 159. So in homography, in that transform, you need to make sure that it's constant. So I basically take those 4 points, put them into an array. After that array is processed for all the players on the field, I dump it and then move on to the next frame. So I really heavily rely on that CV2 get frame method call.
Right. Well, one just quick suggestion is that you could use many more points than just 4 points, because if you have more points, you can actually, and even if some of them are wrong, right? even if some of the points are not exact matches, you can use something called ransack and find homography, and
Yep.
it will use all the
I-
all the
Yep,
points.
I use ransack in the homography actually. I've tried to use. Does it have to be an even number? Because I tried 5 one time and it didn't work. It threw
It
an
has to
error.
be at least, it has to be at least 4,
Yep.
and they should not be linear. Like they should not be all on the same line, because
Okay, that was the problem then. I had three in a row.
Yeah.
Linear.
Those, yeah,
Okay, that makes
those
sense.
those can
Well,
cause problems.
well, now I got something new to try, I guess, when I go
Sweet.
back. So, tracking players, like I said, there's many methods, deep sort, all that stuff like that. The big thing I wanted personally was I wanted each player to have their own individual ID, because I write all this stuff to a database
Right.
for metadata tracking and all and manipulation later. So if you think about like in a YOLO demo or whatever, one frame it might be a skill player and have the ID of 1, but the next next frame it might be a linebacker and have an ID of 66. So like that's that. I like that it processes it so much faster. But
Yep.
what I kind of went with was the legacy trackers of CSRT, because they follow that one player. I take it from the first frame, I assign their ID, that's their static ID for the rest of the play,
Right.
and I'm able to do it that way. So it really slows it down, but I get the data that I want.
And you don't need to do this in real time or anything, right? Because this is offline processing.
Yeah, yep. I'm not trying to do it while the game is going on. Like if you do watch
Yet.
Thursday night football is now owned by Amazon or Amazon Prime, and they'll actually do live tracking, have the little byte track circles under them and their names and numbers and the lines on the field and stuff like that, which you can kind of replicate with YOLO and byte sort. But once again, the camera moves, so it's not always the exact spot they were in
Right.
in the first place. It's not
Yeah.
1-to-1. And then the other thing I tried was like, what about the colors of the jerseys? Those are very distinct colors for college and professional. But in college, some of their football fields are literally artificial grass, and they're
Right.
the
Yeah.
same color as their jersey.
We just saw
So-
that, right, in the previous one also.
Yeah, exactly. So like how would you track that jet green? How would you track this jet green on this green grass? Or this white field on this white logo, or this white jersey on a white logo? Now Detroit has like a really nice blue color that is pretty easily tracked, but green and like I said, some college teams, their field is literally gray and purple, and their jerseys are gray and purple, or their field is blue and their jerseys are
Or
like
it may be slatted to like 2 different colors, or even I saw didn't one team have like a chess grid on the field at one point of different colored grass?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, Maryland.
I'm actually surprised by these choices, because the people, I mean, you would think that these are meant for television.
Optimized for TV.
They would choose colors that stand out, and we are able to see the players clearly. But that's clearly not the case.
Yep. And then
the
like
science of branding and stuff wasn't quite as mature as it is
Compatible with-
now. Yeah, in 1920 or whatever. So yeah.
Well, the Los Angeles Rams were their first team ever to put a logo on their helmet in 1950. So,
and I'm sure there was a huge backlash from the the old football fans too at that time.
Oh, I'm sure. So yeah, these are all these things that I had to think about and figure out as I went along. Like I said, I use RoboFlow. I built my model. I picked my classes. I did all the annotations and stuff like that. And I host it on there, and I actually make a call to it in my code. So once the while loop of the CV script is open, I make a call to RoboFlow. It takes a screen cap of the frame, sends it off to RoboFlow. I get the bounding boxes I need, and then I go from there. I also have a way to add more players and subtract players if I need. I'm ready for a demo if you guys are.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
Yeah, sure. Let's take a look.
Yeah,
Live demo. We love it on this show.
So this
before
is
we go into a demo, these clips, I'm guessing that when you get a video, it's one long video you get, right? Do you clip it manually to get the plays out, or how does it work?
Yeah, so like I mentioned, that was one of the things I wanted. So right here, so this is your this is where you take your tkinter and you put in your file name from your ask file directory. And then this is literally copy paste from a tutorial I found right here.
Was it on Learn OpenCV?
I couldn't tell you. I've had this code for a while, but basically it puts in a little method with a couple track bars, and it starts it at 0 and 200, and you drag it until you basically get to the part of the frame you want, and then it processes.
But there are
just
100 plays or more, 150 plays or so in a game, right?
Right.
So
okay, I understand your question now.
Yeah.
So yes, generally can you see this little file folder here?
Yeah.
Okay, so right here is the entire game. This is from a Washington State University and Iowa State University game back in 2018. This is the entire play. Okay. So yes, you have to go in and individually cut out the plays, like you said. Right. So here, right. I've done that here. There are some video. So I'm not a college coach anymore. These are all things that friends have given me, or I found that are on the internet that maybe shouldn't be on the internet, but I found them anyway. And right. downloaded them and manipulated them how I wanted. Coaches will actually have these plays already pre-cut up and clipped. So every time you push record and stop on the camera, it will spit out just one play. It won't be one big.
They are doing it manually at the time of recording itself.
Yeah. Yep. Exactly. Yep. So
some intern or assistant coach.
Yeah. So basically, it all gets dropped into your video process, your video program that you have in the NFL or college, and you can watch the plays individually as is.
Because that's another interesting computer vision problem that you can solve. From the video, you cut out different, all the plays.
Yeah, I've thought about that one as well. I'm not 100% sure how I would do it, but I've definitely thought about it.
Okay, we had I mean, one of my colleagues, he had done something similar for cricket. So in cricket, you have the same problem that there's a lot of dead time where nothing is happening. So he would go and clip out all the places where the bowler actually bowls the thing, right? And so that's an interesting problem here as well, similar problem.
Yep. All right, so this is I'm going to show you guys basically. So I have a website, gridironintel.com. It's on my LinkedIn. I can paste in the chat later, but you can actually download this. I packaged it together as a Windows executable. Sorry for all you Mac and Linux users. But basically, it will send all this data off to an EC2 instance that has a Postgres database and has a website associated with it. So every play you do will go to a website that I built off Django and Python. But anyway, so this is really meant towards college instead of the NFL, because I couldn't find any NFL APIs. And the reason why is I attached the game ID and the play ID to every single line that I upload.
You are back.
Cool. So as you can see here, I take the game ID and the play ID, which is from a free API
Kabuki-ish
that I found. And I attach that to every single line that I upload into the database, basically for relational database purposes, because it's a unique play ID. It's the game ID obviously stays the same for each singular game. So that's basically so this is basically some questions that you have to answer before each play. So you have to know what year the game is from. And I'm going to do that Iowa State, Washington State game that you saw in my window there. So it was a postseason game. And then, so back to Satya's point about there's very distinct lines on the field.
Ken in the chat says, go Cougs.
So what Satya mentioned, there's very distinct things on the football field. So basically this question right here, hash marks or numbers, basically where are you going to identify your homography points? Are you going to use the hash marks? Or are you going to use the numbers? I generally go with the numbers. And then is the offense going from left to right or right to left? In this case, they're going from left to right. Let's see if I can find this play. So once you do that, it goes to submit. This will open up your individual file folder. So you can find which play you're looking for. So I'm looking for something on the 26-yard line, which is about that. So this is that T. Kinter library I was talking about in that demo. So you can see here's the scoreboard. As you scroll through, you see the play. There's the end zone. This is what I was talking about. I don't track this. I don't need this right now. So basically I just kind of take this until I find right. You see the center starting to snap the ball. Usually put it a couple frames before that. And then I hit play. Or I get to a point right about to where it gets real, like they're about to tackle him or whatever.
Is this data available through the website or
no, you would have to find your own coach's film, but if you go to YouTube and type in coach's film all 22, you will find some good samples pretty quickly. And of course, there's plenty of ways in Python to download a YouTube video. You might have to do some cutting.
Mm-hmm.
YouTube because that's a very neat project, right? Try just this one thing to find the play from a video. That's a pretty neat.
So fun fact, basically if that play has already been done before, it will track it irregularly or have some different parts to it. So just for sake of demo, that's why you don't see anything on the screen right now. Just for sake of demo, I'm going to pick a different play number, but I will use the same video, or I'll pick a different video. So I'm just going back and doing that again. So sorry about that. I'll do this play right here. This is a different play than what I was going to show you, but this play right here is actually my testing subject and basically what I've written most of my code on. So you can see this guy's about to come in motion. So the screen freezes after you hit spacebar, hit escape, and it will send it off to RoboFlow for me. And now you can see RoboFlow has picked up quite a few people. It's missed a few, but that's all right. So at this point, you can hit spacebar, and then every single person you want to pick up, you draw a box over and you hit space. I want the center, obviously. There's the quarterback. And there's the running back. So once I've done that, we should see boxes. Oh, you didn't get him. I don't know why my space bar is acting up. See, I'm still not getting the center. Gotta slam it. Nope. Come on. You can do it.
Live demo.
Yay. It's not picking him up. There we go. Okay. So we got it. So now I'm going to hit the letter P. Don't ask me why I chose any of these letters. Yep. So for
Bingo.
points, right? And I don't know. That's way off. That shouldn't be like that at all, but also live demo. So I'm just going to pick the numbers here for sake of argument. So now you can see the 4 dots on here. And then you can't see it, but now you can see as the play goes, our dots are starting to get picked off. It's a little bit offline because my source points are a little bit off, but this is it getting captured in live time. You can see the motion of ID number 10.
Motion.
Yep. And there's another problem as it gets close to another somewhat suitable character.
Yeah, really tough to tell the difference at this distance and this angle between the
and I guarantee one of these linebackers are going to get dropped because of this white logo in the middle here.
Valero.
Yeah, they're all white jerseys. Referees are also a big problem.
Focus on the left side of the screen. If you're watching here, you can see it kind of drawing out the play, which is really neat.
Yep. So all this is being written to a database right now as homography XY points, the ID that's associated with them. So DB1, their position, where they are in the field. And you can see the running back gets open right here, and the quarterback is he's still looking around for somebody to throw it to.
Yeah, so it's zooming out and you're still.
Yeah, you can see the camera is backing up as it goes.
Yeah.
So like I said, I take these 4 points, and every frame I have to basically store them into an array and dump them to do the homography. So here's where I've just done some, error correction or just helping out or whatever. So let's say there's a bounding box like this guy right here, this DB number 3, he got lost. He's no longer picking up. So we're just gonna delete him out of here. And then what number was the center? The center was number 24, and basically what ID box is getting picked up is 24. And then it'll ask me like what position. So basically anybody who didn't get identified by RoboFlow. So what skill or what position is number 15? Well, that was the quarterback. So I'll just put that there. 12 up here was a DB. And looks like a couple more boxes.
At what level do people start getting this sophisticated that they are actually having these play cards? And is it at college level or even,
high school,
even high school people are that sophisticated?
Oh yeah, we definitely did this we had play cards like this in junior high when I played. Absolutely.
Wow.
Yep. So at the end of it, there's a third part that it goes to what I call like metadata fixing or whatever, or just more error correction of metadata. It's not very CV, but it's just more towards the play. Basically you can see here. So here's the play that we just took in. Here's a picture. You can see the numbers and zoom in. And then here's the roster of all the players that were on the field, both for Washington State and Iowa State. And you can drag and drop. So like right here, DB, I can drag and drop. So, and then a submit button. So basically it'll update the database with that same play ID and who was on the field and what their name was. And then over here, you can see, you can put it'll write their roster name and then what path did they take. So basically this is the future where where it could get really fun is now that you're getting this data of, this player right here, this DB number 1, he ran cover 3, so he had the third deep. So now you have an individual player with what path they took. Now you can start building out AI off of that or predictive analytics off that, because you're getting players and each individual player and they ran this route. So now out of this formation and this route, all that good stuff. So that's where I see the future of it.
Right. From this view, how are you picking up the names of the players? It's just that them so well?
That's a great question. So if you think about this from a coach who might be using it, and this is a game they just played in, they would know who's on the field at that time. So like they would know who the quarterback is. They would know. I'm just guessing because I don't know. Actually, I do know one player on the field, and it's the quarterback. He's the backup quarterback for the Philadelphia Eagles. So I do know who that is, but other than that, I don't know anybody on this field. So, but if a coach was using it for their team, they would obviously know their players and who was on the field.
Got it. And
so,
the opposing team also, right? They would.
Right. Yeah. So every week you get from the other coaching staff what we call the 2 deep, or basically these are the top 2 players at each position that will be playing or may not be playing. So you always know who's on the field on the other side as well.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's one demo. I don't know if we have more time or if we should jump to questions, but I've been experimenting with YOLO V5 and deep sort and byte track and all that fun stuff as well.
So why don't
let's do our
with the
giveaway
question first?
Yeah.
Okay.
I agree.
And then follow up with the demo.
Okay.
I
sure.
want to see the demo.
Me too.
Yep.
I agree. Let's do that. So folks, if you're just joining us for the first time, or if you need a little reminder, one of the things we do every single week here on OpenCV Weekly is give something away to you in the audience. This week, you'll have the chance to win the OpenCV course of your choosing. You can see what courses we have available by going to opencv.org/courses. I'm going to ask a trivia question based on our presentation today, and the first person to answer that question correctly in the Zoom chat window will win the course of their choosing. If you have won in the last few months, please don't answer and give other people a chance to win. If you're still missing, if you won in the past and you're missing something, please send an email to phil@opencv.org and we'll make sure that you get set up properly. This one is going to be one for the sports fans. We talked a little bit about the beleaguered Detroit Lions, and I grew up a Lions fan, a Jets fan. Like I'm also a Chicago Cubs lifelong fan, so I know losing, folks. Speaking of the Cubs, and speaking of losing teams, let's talk about the Detroit Lions winning a bit. Earlier in the presentation, Scott mentioned the last time that the Detroit Lions had appeared in an NFL playoff game and what year that was. What year was the last Detroit Lions playoff game appearance as of yet?
Can I answer that question?
Nope. All right, there, we got it. We got it. Gabe Downey. Gabe
yep.
Downey. 2016 is the answer we were looking for, Gabe. I'm kind of surprised there were so many quick answers here. I didn't realize you guys were such sports fans.
I see the 50s in there. They did win a few championships in the 50s there. I believe 50, 52, 54, and 57. So
yeah, I almost went with when was the last time the Lions won a league championship, and that answer would have been 1957.
Yep.
So yeah.
Good.
Also, we all remember that
one of the few times we had a question to which I did not know the answer.
It was exciting for you too.
Right.
I almost, so a little inside baseball or inside football as it will, I almost went with a wild card question that wasn't covered in there, but the question would have been, which Detroit Lions great earned himself the nickname Night Train? My favorite line, which is obviously Night Train Dick Lane, who was such a vicious and brutal defensive player that they had to invent new rules to stop him from hurting people.
Yep.
Oh wow! Really?
Back when you could,
the night train necktie.
Back when you could come and clothesline guys.
Yeah. Do yourself a favor and go on YouTube and search Dick Lane highlight reel. You'll be glad that you weren't playing football against him. I'll tell you that much. So congratulations, Gabe. Send one email to phil@opencv.org with the course you would like. You can go ahead and see what courses are available at opencv.org/courses. Those of you who didn't win, you can also get your own course at opencv.org/courses for a very reasonable price. Invest in yourself. It's the new year. Invest in your career. Learn from the experts at OpenCV. Let's see demo number 2. Let's do it.
Sure. So like I said, I've been messing around with, I actually built OpenCV from scratch so I could make use of my NVIDIA 3060.
Sweet.
So yeah, the thing I love about it is how much faster it is, because back to the real-time stuff you talked about, Satya, you know, you really, it just flies. It is almost real time. I'm not sharing my screen, man.
Yep, go right ahead.
All righty. So let's pull up my terminal here. And I don't want to butcher his name. This is Mikkel. I forked it from Mikkel Bergstrom or something like that. I can't remember his name. I don't want to butcher it, but I forked it right from him. So I did add kind of the same things in this, the tkinter packages to just pick what video I wanted, and also what frames I wanted, because like I said, you know, I don't need this stuff right here.
Right.
But this is the same play we just did. There's no live time homography with it. This is just my RoboFlow model, which you can find. If I don't know if you search my name or whatever, American football players, I think it's the only one up there. But yeah, you can pull right from that if you're a RoboFlow user. But yeah, you can just see the speed here.
Yeah.
And it's pretty spot on there. With the tracking, like I said, if I could just figure out a way to, keep the ID the same, keep that, that label the same throughout the rest of, like, once you've decided on that label, stick with that label and just go through it. That would, that'd be great. And like I said, I downloaded the PyTorch V5 and trained it on my computer here. It's a pretty beefy gaming PC, like I said, 3060 NVIDIA and a Ryzen 1700, and trained it, overnight and ran it. And I've seen some really good results with that. Like I said, if I could start figuring out homography a little quicker, because like I said, the problem is you have to set those 4 points individually. Maybe if I could figure out how to use the lines, the moving camera, all that stuff. So those are all things I would love to figure out eventually. And if you guys have any way to do that, I would love to know. And of course, you can reach out to me on LinkedIn, Scott Bronkema. I think I'm one of one on there with that name, so it shouldn't be too hard to find. And yeah, I'd love to talk about it more. I really appreciate you guys having me on. This is a lot of fun.
Thanks for coming. So we'll go ahead and unshare your screen here, and we can chat and do some questions here. Go ahead. You want to try turning your camera back on, Scott?
Yeah, let's give it a
see how it works.
Hey,
hey, there he is. So yeah, we got some questions here from folks. Really impressive UI work there. I mean, a lot of times with these kinds of projects, stuff is just all running in the terminal. You're passing arguments or commands via the terminal, but you did a whole hell of a lot of work there with the tkinter UI there. I'm really impressed.
Actually, that was PyQt.
PyQt.
Yeah, but I do use tkinter for the file dialogues.
Gotcha.
It's just simpler.
Yeah. Wow. Really cool stuff. So we've got a few questions here from folks. An anonymous attendee would like to know, are there any plans for you to display this data in a 3D, like a reconstructed 3D environment?
Yeah, I think that'd be really fascinating. I don't have any abilities with like Blender or Unreal Engine or anything like that. I've definitely thought about it because I am the type that likes to stay busy by just constantly learning. I think because you do have this XY data, you could theoretically build out. I mean, you probably could. I don't know. I don't want to say anything wrong, but I think you could take that XY data and transpose it to a 3D model for sure.
Yeah, it seems definitely possible.
Yeah, it's more work. I mean, it's the way you would go about doing this is that you would have 3D representation, like not stick figures, like the 3D models for a few different poses. Right, let's say 100 different poses which commonly occur in football, right?
Yep.
And then you can put these people on. You have to estimate the pose also. That this is probably the pose, like the person is running versus they are
catching the ball, throwing the ball, running,
exactly.
tackling, all that. Yeah.
And then you
falling
can
down.
identify that and just replace it in a 3D world, right? So that it's very much doable. In fact, if you, Tesla in their display of vehicles, right, when they show the whether there's a person passing and things like that, they use something very similar. They have these 3D models which are not continuous, right? It's not like they're trying to exactly get the pose. They do a very rough estimation of the pose and then put the 3D model in the scene for the display. So something similar would be adequate for this kind of thing.
Yep. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Someone else asked, why did you choose YOLO 5?
If you guys haven't been able to tell, I said I Google a lot. So basically whatever tutorial I can find to help me get there the quickest. But yeah, it seems, and I hate saying stuff wrong in front of smarter people than me, but it seems YOLO.
Let me tell you,
a lot more
Scott,
stable.
You get used to it. This is episode 87 of me saying things stupidly in front of very smart people. So
no, this is it's a good choice. A YOLO V5 is a good choice. It
seems most stable, most used. I tried YOLO V7 and it seems slower for some reason, even with the same hardware. So
YOLO V8 is out from the same group.
I did see that. I did
Yeah.
see that. So I might have to play around with that this
Yeah, we'll
weekend.
have to see if we can get them back on the show. We had Ultralytics on here a few months ago. We'll have to do a check-in, see how they're doing. Yeah, so we've got a couple more questions here. Have you considered adapting this to try to do action recognition on specific players per play, like the quarterback or receivers or whatnot?
So yeah, I played wide receiver, so the guy who runs and catches the ball.
I was a cornerback, so
easy pickings there. Anyway, so I've thought about it in the fact that like receivers and DBs seem to be a very easy thing to track. Like especially it'd be interesting to take player A versus player B and make them basically do the same thing against each other. So do a man coverage versus a go route or a pitch route or some sort of route and track it and figure out degrees of separation. Because one thing in the NFL is the windows to throw in are very small. So finding a player who could separate more than another player would be very
create
big
that
insight
separation.
It would be very big insight to the NFL teams and organizations. Those are all things that like I want to do. But seeing as I'm a one-man wrecking crew and also work full-time and have kids and coach and I got to
No, this is very impressive for not. So this is not your full-time work, right? This
no,
is I
haven't been a software developer since 2016.
Yeah, it's very impressive.
Yeah.
Very impressive.
Gosh,
just a lot, just shows a lot of hard work and willing to learn. But I am
a little bit of
tech.
passion goes a long way.
Yeah, I am in tech. I work for a cybersecurity company right now as product support. Work for VMware. Work a lot of data stuff. So I'm not I'm basically all Linux terminal stuff. Database. Yeah. So I'm not tech. I'm not a tech maladroit, so to say. I do understand a bit of it.
Yeah. No, I mean that's obvious. It's like I said, it's a really impressive system we've got here, and so folks can find this at gridironintel.com.
Yep.
They can find you on LinkedIn as Scott Bronkema.
Yep.
What about is there anywhere else they should go to find you? What if they want to work with you on this? What if they're interested in maybe contracting you to try this out in their program? What's the best way to get in touch?
LinkedIn is the easiest. Obviously, I don't mind putting a personal email in the chat if anybody wants it.
Do it.
All right.
Yeah.
So that website is up and running. Like I said, you can download an executable of basically what you just saw. I have some support tutorials on there of like basically how to use the program, and it all goes to the same database, and you can see the work you did and all that and mess around. So
very cool. And I can imagine a lot of this work is even directly transferable to other sports too. Like I could see, I mean, like basketball is an obvious one. I could see this being basically one-to-one used for the same purposes even.
But the thing that also was the hardest, I would say, for me is there is no American football of this. I think I'm one of maybe one that actually has done anything like this. There's certainly no code out there for it. But I had to use a lot of soccer and basketball tutorials to even figure out homography and other stuff like that.
Have you tried monetizing it? Do you think soccer coaches will pay, I don't know, $20 a month for this?
Yeah, so I was pretty close to sale of this idea and this code with a company, and they declined on it. Instead of the money route, I thought I'd open source it and show it to the world, and somebody else can.
So is there, speaking of open source, is there a plan to put this on like GitHub or?
It is on GitHub. It is still a private repo.
Okay.
So
I've got a couple people in the chat already asking if they can see it. So you might have to swallow your pride and let some people see your code.
Well, the other problem might be people will go, "Oh, this guy's an idiot. He doesn't know what he's doing at all."
Hey, nothing speaks louder than results, and this is a really impressive result. I wouldn't.
Well, I appreciate that. Yeah. Sure.
You'd be surprised. I get sometimes I get complaints about people who say that, oh, OpenCV doesn't do this and that correctly. And, I say, okay, yeah, you're right. I mean, it's
Go
not
ahead
a
and fix
perfect
it.
thing. You can always contribute, right? And it's surprising. Some people will always complain, and a lot of people, the vast majority, will always be thankful, even though they may not actually.
The thankful ones are usually a little more quiet, unfortunately, but
Yeah.
we try to encourage them to be loud at OpenCV. I think that's one of the strengths of the community, is that it's a pretty welcoming community, I'd say. So
There you go. Public for
Oh,
all
shit.
to see.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
Oh, wow.
Talk
Very
about
nice.
putting your
Thank
money where your
you.
mouth is. Like
Please be
live,
kind.
made it public live on the show. Is that a first for the show, Satya? I think it is.
It is definitely a first for the
All
show.
right. Yeah, well done.
So I don't have a
Incredible.
fancy README. There is a requirements.txt that was probably generated incorrectly. I don't think you need all of those packages.
Okay.
Wow.
Wow.
But anyway, yeah, have at it.
That kicks
And
ass.
send in the pull requests if you add new features.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Pull requests are accepted.
All right. Thanks
All
so
right.
much, Scott. This was awesome. Thanks so much, everybody, for joining us again. Satya, you want to take us home?
Yeah, thank you so much, Scott. It was, we had a blast on this episode. It was, even though we had a little bit of technical network difficulties, I think people in general loved this episode because, there's a new kind of problem to work on. And you went all the way in the solution, right? So it's very inspirational also for people who are trying to do something on their own and just starting out. But this, I really loved it. Phil, thank you for putting up this show together. And as always, our audience, thank you so much for being with us here. We'll be back next week, same time.
Yeah, I'm Phil Nelson, wishing you a great day. Take care of yourselves out there. Take care of somebody else. We'll see you next time. Thanks so much for watching this episode of the webinar. Please hit that like button, subscribe, and don't forget to tap the little bell icon to be notified when new episodes drop. This week's episode was brought to you by OpenCV Courses. Learn computer vision and AI from the best at opencv.org/courses. If you'd like to be in the audience next week, subscribe to the OpenCV newsletter.